All right, good risings, everybody. This is day 7 of the work-based learning program, Repaired Nations. Glad to be here with Tut. This is today we're going to be talking about collective courage as well as taking the war out of our words. The intention for week 2, in addition to like uncovering the historical connections between Black communities, doing collective effort and cooperative effort. Also, there's like this awareness around self-intention and supporting you all to understand different approaches for gaining insights and language for self-expression and stuff like that. So yeah, I learned about this book, Taking the War Out of Our Words, I think last year. Well, I read it last year, but I learned about it before then. And yeah, it's been really helpful. And yeah, we'll just be giving you all some frameworks to think through or think about um, moving through. Anything you want to say about this chapter 5 that's going up into the Young Negro Cooperatives League, or taking the war out of our words, Tat, before we get into the book or get into everything?
Yeah, so chapter 5, Queen Mother Ella Jo Baker is very impactful. And just to note that this is just pretty much a part of her great contribution to the cooperative legacy. You'll be seeing her name and Schuler, which was her partner, a lot. But specifically, Queen Mother Ella Jo Baker doing several things. So I would just like for us to take note of the transitions and how she never stopped, considering failure as just another step in her long journey and commitment to this vision. And then also, just to be aware of taking the war out of our words. I mean, it was so impactful when Brother Greg first brought it to us in the book club about a year or so ago. And just understanding that to do what we're trying to do on a cooperative type of platform, we have to be evenly balanced and killed with one another, not only just economically on a business standpoint, but emotionally and mentally. And taking the war out of your words is a great way to learn how to express and deal with challenges in a very beneficial and a cooperative way. So just want to add those two notes so we can kind of zero in when Brother Greg takes us to those 2 points.
Thank you, bro. So yeah, I'll hop in, share my screen. I took some pictures of this book to share with you all. I'll people the cover. The author's name is Sharon Strand Ellison. And you're able to find the book on Amazon if it's helpful for you. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to look at inside of this book is so essentially this book is talking about how a lot of the essential like communication mechanisms that we use are often weaponized, and because of that, folks are like ourselves and others are often like moving about in like this counterattack kind of defensive reactions mode. And so she like named out 6 like defensive reactions and under 3 larger categories of surrender, withdraw, and counterattack. And so I'll just read through these a little bit. And prompt number 1 for this day of assignment number 4, or I'm sorry, assignment number 7, day number 7, is to let us know which of these defensive reactions I guess you feel like happens for you sometimes. And so under surrender, we have surrender betray, codependent personality type, giving in to someone who treats you poorly, blaming yourself and making excuses for the person. There's also surrender sabotage, a passive aggressive personality type, pretending to agree with someone who you think is treating you poorly, and then doing something to undermine the person. I think, to be honest, I don't like saying it, but surrender betray sometimes happens for me. Like I'll just like, kind of label myself as the bad one, and then, try and excuse to get out of like difficult things or when I feel defensive. Another set of defensive reactions is underneath of withdraw. And it is withdraw escape, a passive personality type, avoiding talking about something you don't want to discuss in order to avoid conflict. Unfortunately, this is also me sometimes. Like, even though it's like really hard, sometimes I feel like it's better to just like scoot around the elephant in the room and just be mad uncomfortable. But I'm moving away from that. But just recognizing where I could be sometimes. Withdraw entrap is a vindictive personality type, refusing to respond to someone in order to draw that person into a situation where he or she may feel uncomfortable or act inappropriate. The last of them are counterattack. There is counterattack justify, defensive personality type, responding to criticism by explaining your own behavior or making excuses. What I was saying kind of sounds like that, so maybe I'm gonna mix all of these, I don't know. And then counterattack blame, aggressive personality type, attacking the other person's position in an attempt to defend yourself. And we're not necessarily trying to get into any blame, because this is mainly looking at ourselves and asking like, okay, when I'm feeling defensive or it feels like someone's attacking me, like how do I usually respond if it's not defensive? Or like how do I usually respond if it is defensive? And then like the next step is like asking yourself, how often am I defensive? Is this like an all the time thing? Is it just sometimes? And like starting to cultivate that awareness of like, kind of how your body like is responding automatically at times, because we don't always choose these things, but they do happen nonetheless. So this page goes into just a summation from what she's talking about in the book, with how sometimes we misuse the three basic forms of communication: questions, statements, and predictions. And so in one instance, we may use a question to make a statement, which is expressing our own opinions, feelings, or beliefs under the cover or guise of a question. A question is really supposed to elicit facts or, trying to get more info. But when folks feel, and I too, when I feel like there's an underlying motive, I can get defensive. I'm like, wait, why are you, I don't know. And the next part is using a question to entrap someone. And this question draws someone into exposing information that is self-incriminating and makes that person look bad. Often in this book, if I could find it really quick, the author is talking about how questions should be like more of like an innocent search for answers, as opposed to like trying to talk about our opinions or her, like in her estimation, questions should have a nature of curiosity and innocence. The character of a non-defensive question is never harsh, accusatory, or interrogating. It is gentle, respectfully offering others an invitation to speak. So that includes being innocent, open, neutral, inviting, primarily for gathering up information. But you can see that these have an underlying motive of entrapping someone, or trying to get your own stuff out by asking a question. Statements, which in the book, the author talks about how it's best for these to be Well, you want to have effect of courage and freedom when you're doing these. They should have a nature of being open and direct. The character of a non-defensive statement is not suspicious, guarded, or dominating. It is straightforward and clear. Um, there gets to be some like vulnerability when talking with a non-defensive statement. But ways that statements can often be misused, or if people are stating their own personal feelings, beliefs as universal truths, or using a statement to convince others to agree. Using statements about your own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs to try to persuade others to agree with you. Predictions. This is I think we all make predictions and let folks know, what will happen if, a certain thing goes along. This book tries to invite us to, how do I say? It's more so with these predictions about like creating something that has a nature of protectiveness, foretelling its neutrality, its definitive. Its function is to provide security through predictability and not necessarily to try and coerce someone or how do I say? Anyway, it's hard for me to talk about the prediction section. That's not something that I've like focused on so much. I've mainly been focusing on the things that I showed you. And so here are some of the like nature and functions of the non-defensive communication tools, questions, statements, and predictions that I was referring to. I'll be coming back to this throughout the course of like these 6 months. Like essentially, I wanted to like invite you all to bring some awareness with like how you're receiving like other people's like statements, questions, or predictions to create some awareness for really like how often we're feeling defensive when other people are talking, which is like the first step in like disarming our own defensiveness and being able to have that neutrality or openness or vulnerability that's required to have non-defensive communication and to take the war out of our words and like, acknowledge if we're feeling a certain way and talk it through with the person rather than holding it in, like misusing these tools, making the other person feel bad as well as yourself maybe, and just like kind of continuing this cycle of each person like not really feeling on steady ground, and perhaps like getting into a defensive space because of that. I feel like I said a lot and I'm sorry it wasn't all the way succinct. But as I said, I'll be wrapping this up and we'll be coming back to it. The first prompt was or is to look at the picture right here with the 6 defensive reactions and talk about which one feels like something that you do, and let us know why. Tut, any questions or thoughts?
Just real briefly, if you can just give a explanation of what surrender would mean in actual life, withdrawal, and counterattack from your understanding, so people can have a
Yeah, for sure. So for the surrender defensive type, essentially when there's a moment of tension in a conversation, one is going to I'm trying to speak with the right language about this. So some examples of like how surrender can come up. One could surrender out of fear of loss. And so it could be like a fear of a job loss, a loss of child custody, loss of the person we want to be in love with. When we surrender totally and refuse to acknowledge how we are being mistreated, we are likely to experience the fear of loss consciously. There's like surrender out of guilt and like essentially just like we're basically surrendering and attempting to influence the other person to prevent further conflict. And we're like, look, you can have it. Like whatever you said, you got it. Like I surrender. You can have it. It could be something that happens out of habit. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Unfortunately, to be honest, I need for us to come back to this because I just wanted for this to be like a short thing, but it's also, this is going to be a while. Let's jump into chapter 5, since I'm a little unprepared at the moment, and we'll come back to this. All right. So, chapter 5 of Collective Courage is about the Young Negroes Cooperatives League. And yeah, I feel like it would be great if you could read this first quote, Tut.
Okay, awesome. So we're on page 112, chapter 5, the Young Negroes Cooperative League. Young Negroes, it is you who must now take up the burden of leadership. You must succeed where the oldsters have failed, young Negroes. Turn your backs on the old programs and prescriptions of formula and formulate others more in accord with the social and economic trends. Forget your petty individual interests and join in cooperative effort for the betterment of all young Negroes. Through all cooperative effort, as consumers, you can find your way out of the present dilemma. Collectively, through democratic management of your own economic enterprises, you can supply yourselves with everything you consume, your own amusement and recreation, your own education and culture. Schuler, who was one of the founders of the Young Negroes Cooperative League.
Thank you, Tut.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this chapter is from 112 to 125. For the folks that are just doing 30 to 45 minutes after this to complete the prompts and the educational requirement, please continue to read the first and last sentence of each paragraph, getting like the overview, excuse me, of the whole thing before like jumping into a certain section. Same for the co-op dev folks who are going to be spending like another 2 or so hours diving into this and other things. So yeah, I'm not okay. Let me take a moment to practice some of these things. I am feeling a little bit of guilt and shame that I'm not all the way prepared to like teach this, taking the word out of our words with certainty. And I have a need to like give the cohort certain things, or at least things that aren't like jumbled and hard to follow. So I'm gonna scratch prompt 1 about the taking the word out of our words. We'll come back to that when I can like give you all a more succinct thing. And we'll just jump into the next. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. Understanding, your intention of wanting to make sure everyone is fully prepared and and you know, they have the right amount of information. I understand your decision. I just want to let you know that what you did earlier was very impactful and detailed. But if you feel like there's more that needs to be broken down, I'm pretty sure that everyone else will understand that as well. So yeah, we're with you.
All right, cool. Yeah. So I think just like watching the video is enough, or like going through the uh, slideshow that we'll be sending out in the email if you want to learn more. And I'll have more things in there, but yeah, no prompts, just to make things more succinct. All right, so the prompt one, instead of that, open up my book. Okay, so prompt one instead of that will be, how did you know about Ella Jo Baker before Collective Courage? And so this is something that you could like really write before getting into this book, so you don't like color your own stuff. Um, but there's like, she's been involved in many different organizations and prominent organizations. And so there's been an opportunity for almost everyone to get to know her in a different light. We're going to be uncovering like the origin stories almost, like when she first starts getting into stuff. Something that most people don't know, but I'm just curious what you all, have picked up before this learning program. So that'll be prompt number one. And as you're going through this chapter, you're gonna learn, as Tut said earlier, that George Schuler put out a call to young Negroes. And Ella Jo Baker was one of the few that showed up and said that she was down. And after that point, she became the executive director of the Young Negroes Cooperatives League, which embraced this super ambitious plan, 5-year plan. It's something, Repaired Nations is always learning from the book. We're not quite at this moment yet, but me and Ted are itching. The plan outlined the goals of getting 5,000 charter members within 5 years, like getting cooperative enterprises where each council exists, like getting wholesale establishments to like make sure that the co-ops get the goods they need, a bank, factories at the very end. And so like we shouldn't get it twisted thinking that like our people didn't know what to do or like didn't have plans for getting us forward. Um, and you could see like as you're reading through some more that like they had only a partial list, Dr. Gordon Nemhard says, of the YNCL organizers. They had people in like Nashville, in which is in Tennessee, a few cities in California. They were in Alabama and Delaware, a few cities in New York, and in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, in Ohio, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, Texas. They were almost everywhere. And so you can imagine like what would have happened if, yeah. You want to fill in anything?
Yeah, no, just like, and this was the 30s, a little bit around the time of the Great Depression, so the country was in an economic drought, and the Black folks that we're reading about, we were not just jumping out of windows, no, not trying to be insensitive to people who did, but it was a very scary time. And what you will see throughout this book is that when it gets scary, like one of our elders say, when the governing society catches pneumonia, it's just like a common flu for the Black indigenous folks. Meaning that to say that we don't worry because we've always been in a certain drought, always been in a certain recovery, always been in a certain kind of pandemic that was specific to us. So when you see what was going on behind the scenes with our leadership, you'll see organizing, you'll see structured goal setting, you'll see us coming together, pulling resources, and that is exactly what you're going to see a lot of in detail in this chapter. with the Young Negroes Cooperative League. And the beautiful thing about them is they were specifically targeting young Negroes. So you'll be able to see if you watch and take some notes, and you can kind of cross-reference what you're seeing, or if you've been following Repair Nations, what the Young Negroes Cooperative League had started off doing, and what we're kind of like modeling today with what we're doing, and also with this program, with the education piece. So just kind of, just make that understanding, when you're reading, look at the dates, and then cross-reference that with what what was going on in this country, and then it'll amaze you even more, and especially dealing with this post-COVID, we're hoping that you'll be inspired to contribute some things as well.
Sure. And the second and last prompt for today is to pick 2 favorite things about the Young Negro Cooperatives League's legacy. Could be anything throughout this chapter, but there's a specific section near the end of the chapter where you can go and see, some of the awesome accomplishments that they were able to bring forward and inspire. And that will bring you to the end of the chapter. The Young Negroes Cooperatives League wasn't around for a long time, unfortunately, but it did have some lasting impact. And so we're looking forward to you learning about this really impactful cooperative development effort that happened during the Great Depression, got a bunch of interest. We learned through research that Ella Jo Baker stepped into a government development role shortly after this, which not quite sure if it was, it was really a combination between them not being able to raise enough during the Depression, the folks who were giving them space not being able to offer it anymore, and some other things. But nonetheless, you could see that Ella Jo Baker took this, ran with it, helped the New York State promote consumer cooperatives before going on to other things that were, in terms of civil rights and SNCC and stuff like that. It was the stuff that we all remember. So yeah, really appreciate y'all for tapping in today. Thank you. If there's any questions, now would be the time. Otherwise, Tut and I are always available. We're going to continue getting regular meetings, check-ins on the schedule with people. So, yeah, until then, if you don't have a time, just feel free to tap in. All right, y'all. So, yeah, we're here. I'll be sending the email, relatively soon. And yeah, as always, we appreciate you.